They say that when one door closes, another opens. This would be one of those times. This is the last episode of Bob's Walkie Talkie, Season 1. And soon to be the first episode of Bob's Utopia, Season 7, from Taiwan, Kaohsiung, Taiwan, to be exact. I started this channel in April for something to do while I was in Canada, and it certainly did keep me busy over the summer. But now I'm going back to Taiwan and to Bob's Utopia. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed to Bob's Utopia, there's a link below. And at Bob's Utopia, you'll find content like this. Everything you need is in Taiwan. And if it's not in Taiwan, you don't need it. And like this. YouTubers in Taiwan are like street performers, but with fewer instruments and more product reviews. And finally, like this. There's always something going on in Taiwan, and a lot of the time I have no idea why, where, when, or what. That's good content. So I wanted to, in this video, go over a few more reflections about how living in Kelowna in a one-bedroom apartment is different than living in a big house in Waterloo. I don't miss the big house and all the maintenance and problems that potentially come with it. Another thing that I've noticed here in Kelowna is that the sun goes down shortly after 4 o'clock. It seems very, very early. And I've noticed that the sun filters down through the clouds and the mountains differently here. Being a photographer, even an amateur photographer, is much better here in Kelowna. I mean, look at this. And there are a lot of other little things that I've noticed, like Remembrance Day is a provincial holiday in BC. I've noticed it going for a hike. The hikes are much steeper. And I've noticed that, at least in Kelowna, it's much less multicultural than it is in Kitchener-Waterloo. I've noticed that the birds are bigger and that the internet is slower. These are just little things I've noticed. I'm sure there's more. But you get the idea that you're living in a universe that's running parallel to the one that you're used to. And it's not a better or worse universe, it's just a little bit different. It's like they took it apart and put it back together again, but they rearranged some of the pieces. And I guess I'll tell you the story about justice. This is justice. There's a reward for justice, but I predict that justice will never be found. Justice is a little Yorkshire Terrier, I believe. And 3 or 4 weeks ago, the dog walker was out walking with Justice, and a naked man appeared. And this is all a story that I read about in the local news. This is local news. So the dog walker is out walking Justice, and a naked man appears out of nowhere. Justice starts barking at the naked man. So the dog walker kicks the naked man. And Justice somehow runs away and is never seen again. I think I've missed part of that story already. That's the kind of local news that is newsworthy here in Kelowna. Getting some gas. Here's something we don't see in Ontario. Sandbags for $9.99. Oh, that's me. Here's another thing we don't see in Ontario. Washer fluid. It's a good idea. Price of gas, by the way, is $1.38.9. It's expensive to live in BC. And I know I mentioned in my last video that BC people dress differently, but I'd like to refine that a little bit. They seem to dress like they're either just about to enter the forest or they've just come out of the forest. And in two ways. They're either glamping or they're tree planting. There doesn't seem to be a large middle ground between these two styles of dress. And I find driving in Kelowna to be challenging, and most people don't seem to be up to the challenge. See some very tricky maneuvers in fairly heavy traffic on a regular basis. So Kelowna drivers are either really good drivers or really terrible drivers. And I think, according to Reddit, they're terrible drivers. I have to say that the people in Kelowna are much friendlier than the people in Kitchener-Waterloo. They love to say good morning to you when you're out for a morning walkabout, and they love to chat. They love their dogs too. Everybody's got a dog, either a large dog or a couple of small dogs. But one negative is they're not as diligent as people in Ontario, or at least people in Waterloo. They're not as diligent here in Kelowna about picking up the dog poop. Uploading a video to YouTube is like ordering something to be delivered to your house by Amazon. We don't have Amazon in Taiwan, so that's a good reason to have a YouTube channel here. That's logic.